Welcome everyone, welcome to CocoaHeads for April. So to begin with, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, traditional custodians of the land, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So hello, I am Zach, and along with Christian, we are your hosts tonight. We run CocoaHeads. Thanks for coming, hope you have a good night. A reminder, as always, that CocoaHeads has a code of conduct. It's available to read on the website in full, but the key ideas in there are to be respectful, be inclusive, and be aware of your fellow attendees. If there's any issues or concerns throughout the night, please come and speak to Christian or myself, and we'll address it. Now, a massive thank you to our sponsors for this month. We have Biloo, as always. Massive appreciation goes to Biloo for the space, and we also have a new sponsor this month, which is Procreate. So some of you might be familiar with the Procreate logo. And Procreate are jumping on board alongside Biloo to help with our ongoing costs, helping us run the meetup. And we're going to be hearing a little bit more from the team at Procreate as the year goes on. And in particular, I'm looking forward to a few talks that they have lined up, both technical and otherwise, which I think are going to be really interesting to everyone attending CocoaHeads. But the big announcement for today from Procreate is that they're coming to Sydney. So you might be familiar with Procreate. It's they're the developers of the Procreate drawing app on iOS, as well as the newer Procreate Dreams app. It's a very advanced tools for the iPad for creatives. And these really push the technical limits of the iPad. Probably as developers, we're all familiar with this and very interested in what Procreate do. But you might also have heard from Procreate before when they're hiring, and you've heard that the role is in Hobart, which for a lot of us in Sydney might not be ideal. But that's all changing soon. They're starting a Sydney office. So this is very exciting, I think, for probably in the room. I definitely recommend checking them out if you're unfamiliar. But like I said, you'll hear more from them throughout the year. I don't think the office is here just yet, but as it opens, you'll hear from people from Procreate. And if you're interested in working for Procreate, they've put up a careers link there, which you can check out. And yeah, like I said, you'll hear more details in the coming months. But this is very exciting for the Sydney iOS community. So really looking forward to this partnership. We have a Slack community. So if you are interested in hanging out throughout the month, talking to fellow iOS developers from more than just Sydney, we have the Melbourne people, or other people from all around Australia in there. Definitely jump into the Slack, check it out, and there's a few channels to note that I've highlighted there. But yeah, good place to ask questions and hang out with other iOS devs. So we are on YouTube tonight. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're watching at home. Now, anyone attending for the first time tonight? Just a show of hands. Welcome. Round of applause. We hope you enjoy, and we hope to see you again soon. Now, if you like what you see here tonight, Melbourne CocoaHeads also run an excellent event. Funnily enough, tonight they're running at the same time as us, but ordinarily they run the week before us. They also have a good YouTube live stream, so you can go on after the fact, a lot like we do, and watch the stream after. So if you're interested in more CocoaHeads, that's how you can get it. Conference alert, I don't have any more details other than the DevWorld conference, which is, to my knowledge, the only iOS conference in Australia, is planning to run again in September. We don't have details other than a date range there, but I'll keep you updated as we get closer to September and as we hear more about DevWorld. So is anyone hiring or looking for work and wants to give a quick plug for what you're looking for? Yep, do you want to? Oh, sorry. Yeah, it come up, yeah.
Yes, I have been, I don't want to say fired, but I've been laid over last week. So right now I have until end of the month. So I would frame it as an opportunity for many companies just to hire a senior iOS developer with decade of experience and also great guy. So yeah, let me know.
Cool. Faith Young. Yeah, do you want to?
Hi. Yeah, I came up last month. I'm an iOS dev and I'm looking for an iOS role. So I'm currently interviewing. If you know anyone who's hiring, feel free to reach out to me.
Cool. Thank you. Couple of yeah.
Hi. Currently I'm working as a small property investment company and need someone to write a software or website for me. If anyone knows rates, WordPress, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, do you want to?
I'm just a student. I'm a student in UNSW right now. I'm been into Swift for the past 4 or 5 months, and I've been working on some projects in the society in UNSW DevSoft Developer Society, and I'm just looking for opportunities and connect with more people that likes iOS development. So yeah, that's it.
Cool. Thank you. Awesome. I don't think we've had so many people looking for work or hiring in a while, so that's great. All know who to talk to in the break. Maybe something can work out. And of course, a reminder that Procreate is coming to Sydney if you're looking for work in the next few months. All right, I'm almost done here. I won't keep you much longer. So looking ahead, our next meetup is the 15th of May. We should be back here, but as usual, wait till I post details on Meetup and Slack to confirm. And we still have availability for speakers. So if you're interested in speaking in May or any month beyond that, feel free to get in touch with Christian or myself and we can make that happen. Actually, everyone did a great job of this today. If you're coming or you can no longer come, please remember to keep your Meetup RSVP up to date because it helps us with catering and things like that. All right, that's enough rambling. So tonight's schedule, we have our first lightning talk of understanding async await. Now, because it's a lightning talk, we won't take a break in between and we'll go straight into the first talk, which is about how to code faster. And then we'll take a break after that. Socializing, you can go home if you like or stick around for a chat. So we'll go all the way through and yeah, talk to you on the other side. Yes, Neil?
Just a question. What's coming up now? We've got WWDC. I presume the June meetup will probably be some sort of panel.
Probably. It hasn't been discussed or decided yet, but if anyone has any ideas or if you want to be on a panel, you know who to talk to. We'll start organizing that probably in about a month's time or something. Usually kind of last minute, but sometimes for those who haven't attended a June one before, sometimes we get some involvement from Apple, which is always really, really good and exciting as well. But sometimes we also have to wait to know what's happening there. So yeah, we won't start planning probably for another month or so. But if you have any ideas of what you'd like, even what you'd like to see for the June event, we'd like to do something a little bit different. It's usually not the structured talk format. It's more a panel or a interactive discussion of some sort. Let me know because we can plan around that as well. So, but I'll keep you updated once I know. So, all right, that's all I have for you. So, thanks. All right, I'll give you that. Are you right with the mic? Oh, I'll turn this off.
Yeah.
Are we good, Christian?
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Hanisa. Thanks for coming to my talk. Well, I just started. My talk's on networking with Async await. I have about 3-4 years experience in iOS dev. So does anyone know about Async await? Has anyone had experience? Yeah? Okay. So what is Async await? Async await is a way to write code that deals with tasks that might take some time, like downloading an image from the internet or loading data from a file. Without Async await, your app might freeze or slow down while waiting for these tasks to finish. So in simple terms, async means this task might take some time, and await means wait here until the task is done. So I found a real-world example on Medium. An example would be like ordering pizza. So let's say you're ordering pizza for dinner. You place an order. This is like calling the pizza place. In programming, this is async because it takes time to make the pizza. You wait for the pizza. Instead of just standing there doing nothing, you might go watch TV, you might do some work, chat with friends. In programming, this is await. This is the wait part. And your app can do other things while waiting for the pizza. Once the pizza arrives, you can stop whatever you're doing and start eating. So I have a code example. This is not mine. So we have the functions order pizza and have dinner. And we start off with ordering pizza. So we place the order and we have task.sleep and we wait for 3 seconds, and then it returns a pizza is ready, but we have dinner and it's an async function, and we await for order pizza, and then we print pizza and the dinner is served, and we also have the task function at the bottom that says await, have dinner. So this would be the code example of the description I gave earlier. Why do we use async await, or why use it in the first place? Does anyone know what we would use previously? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, completion block, yeah, completion handlers, callbacks, yeah. And we would use URL session, and this unfortunately is a callback hell, and it leads to hard to maintain code. The modern approach would to use async await, which was introduced in Swift 5.5 and improves clarity and code structure. Why is it better? It improves readability, it avoids nested closures, there's better error handling, uses standard do catch blocks, and safer execution. So it ensures UI updates on the main thread. So I have a demo that I'm going to go through. Do I need to make the text bigger? Is that fine? Yep. So I put this together last minute. I could have refactored this out a bit better. There is networking code in the view controller. You should never have that. All of your business logic should be in the view model. I also have a network manager. And right here with the function get city weather, that's the networking core, and it's marked async, and it throws and it returns weather data. I forgot to say that this program is using the weather stack API, and it retrieves current weather, and it just shows the city, the temperature, and the sunrise time for a given city. So I have the endpoint here, and on line 23 we have our await URL session.shared.data, and if we get a 200 response, if the response status code is 200, then everything's good, or else we'll get an invalid response. And then we also have line 29. After line 29, that's where we do the JSON decoding, and we put it into the model with the data. So just at the bottom, I have my weather data model. I kind of have to put a couple of other, like current weather and astro, just to be able to access city, temperature, city name, so name, location, temperature, and sunrise. And remember to use Codable as well. Yep, and in my view controller, this is where we have task running, and we call get city weather with Sydney. And we have our dispatch queue, that main async that refreshes the view on the main thread. And we also have error handling, where we have invalid URL if there's something wrong with the URL, invalid response, and invalid data. And then a catch all at the bottom for any other type of error. Do I have any questions on this demo? No questions? Okay. I have a GitHub repo. I'll share at the end if you want to take a look and play around it with yourself. Play around with it. Okay, so error handling in Swift. It's important to make sure you use error handling when networking. Common errors would include invalid URL, network failures like 404. 200 is not a network failure. That's like okay, but any other network failure, you probably want to handle that case. There's decoding errors, as well as server errors where the server may be down or it's timed out. Along with that, we have best practices for networking in Swift. Always make sure to use a singleton pattern for network requests. This ensures consistency and avoids redundant instances. Always decode JSON using Codable, and ensures manual parsing effort and errors. Perform UI updates on the main thread. Use dispatch queue.main.async. handle errors gracefully, so provide fallback mechanisms in case of failure, and use tasks for managing async calls in UIKit, tasks, task await fetch data. This ensures that execution happens on, doesn't happen on the main thread, it happens on the async thread. Have a QR code. You can scan it, and this is all my, it comes up with a link tree, and this is all my, my GitHub, my Medium, my LinkedIn, so feel free to check it out. Make sure to follow me, star my repos, please. Yeah. And you can save my contact, my email, if you want to contact me as well. Any questions? I might leave this one. Any
When
questions?
you have like an awaitable method, obviously the function needs to be marked async. When does it stop? Like, do you have to keep marking its async all the way up to a task, or like what terminates that?
Usually you would call, if you want, for example, if you have a function and that's the function that's performing the network call, you would mark that as async. And if you mark it as async, then it would be,
that function is marked as async as well?
well, if
I
the-
saw you wrapped it in a task, I think.
yeah, a task, yeah. And you would use keyword await when you try await. So when you call the async function.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But your viewed load is not marked as asynchronous yet. The task stops.
No, I shouldn't have put this in the view controller at all. Yeah, I actually put it in viewed load, which is really not the best, but yeah, in a separate view model would be better. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
All right, round of applause. Thanks, Hanisa. We'll pass off to Sam. We'll be back in 30 seconds. Yeah. Just pin it. There we go. I'm going to pocket that. Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Sam. I rock up once a year to talk about something generic, not about iOS at all, just to help Zach. This is my one. And Neil usually asks me some curly questions at the end, and I can't wait. Bring it on. My name's Sam Jarman on the internet, so if you have something that matters as a social network, I'm there. Today, I want to talk about working faster as a developer, and I want to talk about why you'd want to do that, habits and habit stacking. And then we'll go through a couple of different sections, the mindset and approaches to things, mastering your tools, efficient workflow practices, collaborative and knowledge sharing, collaboration and knowledge sharing, continuous improvement, and then finally at the end I'll talk about AI, because of course we have to. Just a disclaimer, I'm not perfect. The rest of the talk will sound like I am. I'm not. I don't follow these tips myself 100% of the time. I'm not claiming to be faster than you or my team at work or anyone, and you know. Also, this is not an maybe we can have a brief discussion afterwards about
people's tips. It'll be fun. Yeah, we can keep growing that list. Who am I? I'm an engineering manager at Cochlear. I used to do development when I was in high school, and before I left high school, I had 12 apps on the App Store. They were all terrible, but I learned a lot, had a lot of fun. There was Objective-C 1.2 days, and did some commercial iOS for a couple of years there, including one of the major banks in New Zealand. So thank you for welcoming the imposter in the room, and I'm not going to burst into flames, hopefully. I'm just going to push myself forward a little bit here. Feels a little bit too far back. And as you can tell from my accent, I'm actually originally from New Zealand, but I call Australia home now. Been here over 4 years. I'm currently a backend dev. I lead a team of backend devs. I've been doing JavaScript for quite some time. Great to see Async await come. I'm sure it's really nice. We had it in 2016 in JavaScript. It's very ergonomic. You'll enjoy it. So callback hell is just that. So let's get into it. Why would you want to work faster? You can get more done in the same time. And that's something that might matter to you. In terms of experience, it increases the density of your experience. Now, I could go on a big rant about experience, but essentially one of the dimensions we measure experience on is years, which is a really naive measurement, right? Because a year at a startup versus a year at a slow-moving corporate, you're probably doing a different number of lines of code in those two competing years. So I like to think about the density of experience. It's not the number of years you spend coding, but the amount of coding in your years. So if you want to increase your density and learn fast, especially if you're early career, working faster is one way to do that. It's also important to have these skills when time becomes critical. Let's say you have a production issue and you need to quickly troubleshoot, or you're with a customer on site, or something's down in a production environment. Being able to work fast and not just, oh, I heard it's down, I'll wait for the ticket to get created and I'll get onto that tomorrow, is not really the answer to do when a customer's screaming at you on the phone or some sort of dangerous situation. So being able to work fast under pressure is a good skill to have, and leadership will reach out to you and think that you're the guru to lean on, which is a good position to be in any company. And then hopefully you get rewarded by your employer or by your customers, and that comes in the form of like a bonus or a faster career progression or something like that. If you think you work at a place that won't reward you working faster, you can probably not listen to this talk, and you should probably change jobs. Yeah, because if you do output more, you should seek remuneration for that. But it may, you might want to do it for your own kind of ethics, values, craftsmanship as well. Do what feels best for you. What this talk is not about, it's not about rushing. It's not about skipping steps and shipping shit. It's about making high quality software faster than other people. It's not a way to try speed run your way to burnout. If you do this all the time, you will get burnt out. So don't do that. And it's not about trying to make your life worse and never see your spouse and, get left and make your life miserable in general, or make your fingers tired and get RSI by 27. We are just trying to talk about moving a little bit faster as we go. So this talk is about habits. Habits accumulate. There's a lot of books about habits. One particularly famous one's called Atomic Habits, that referenced an iOS app made by an Australian person. Zach, what's that app called? Streaks, which made that guy lots of money. Just a little tie to our community. But habits stack, right? The more habits you pick up that saves you just a little bit of time, they all accumulate. But the reverse is also true. Every time you think, oh, I should really get around to automating that, or like, this could be faster, but it's all good, they all add up for the opposite effect too. So all these habits need to stack. You need to do all of them to actually get a nice cumulative effect. But each individual one I'm going to talk about tonight just seems pedantic and weird and a little bit ADHD in isolation. So don't think about it in isolation. Think about it as lots of little things to do to have a cumulative effect. Where this talk came from originally was a colleague of mine in my team was like, what are you doing that's making you faster? And I was like, I don't know. I just want to be. And she was like, I really need to know what you're doing. So for that next like month, I actually, every time I did something that I thought, oh, that's actually something I've picked up over my career that will make me faster, I wrote it in a note. And I ended up with like 30, 40 things. And I've worked very hard to weave it into a nice narrative for you all tonight, because the original talk I did to my team in our chapter meeting was very messy. So hopefully flows a bit nicer today. The first section I want to talk about is mindsets and approaches to things to help with this. In order to start going faster, you've actually got to want to go faster. There's this idea in retail of like a sense of urgency. You should always be popping up to customers saying, do you want to help trying on something? Do you want to see that's what it's like? Yeah. People, you have to want to go faster. And this develops over time. It's not instant in the sense that you just click one day and now you're very fast. It takes practice of trying to get into the mindset of, I'm in my go mode. I want to go fast. I want to be good. So wanting to go fast, it sounds like dumb and obvious, like yes, obviously, but there's a lot of people who don't want to go fast. And as I said earlier, that kind of relies on your values, and if you feel like you're being rewarded or recognized for that. Plenty of people I've worked with or I've seen working with just simply don't want to go faster, and you can tell, and they're not necessarily someone I would rely on in a crisis, or look to promote first or give opportunities to first. So there's a downside to not wanting to go faster, but it's got to come from you. Next thing is understanding the big picture. You should always understand the big picture of what you're working on. Now, typically in like corporates or even smaller companies, you might just get given a ticket. It's the next thing. This needs to be built by this time. Go away and come back when it's done, please. Let me know when it's ready for testing. You want to actually step back and understand the big picture of what your company is doing, but also what you're doing in code. So you think about something like Swift UI. Swift UI was a real steep learning curve for a lot of people for the first time, right? Because, back in UI kit days, you say, okay, I want to move this box from here to here. So when a button gets clicked, I want to move it. So I grab my reference to the box, I set its new coordinates, and off it goes. And so I'm manipulating the UI. Whereas in Swift UI, you change the state, and it re-renders in the declarative syntax, and in that state, then the UI changes, right? And that's a real weird mindset to get yourself into, but it's actually a pattern that's available in other places. React Native all work like this. You manipulate the state and you declare what happens with that state. It's very strange, but when I ventured into Swift UI, I'd had a number of years doing React, and I was like, oh, this feels very intuitive. This is quite nice, and I picked it up very quickly. So understanding the big picture of what's actually going on means that you can go to new things or do things powerful. It's not just I'm trying to learn what text open round bracket, quote blah does. Similarly, another example of combine. Combine is just an implementation of a publisher subscriber pattern. It's a very common architectural pattern. So if you've ever done something with queues or streams in like the cloud space, the idea of producers, concepts, pipes, syncs, maps, all these topics are actually make a lot of sense. So understanding that big picture of what you're working on means that you're better at Googling about it, and better at learning about it, and better at taking that knowledge to something else. So always try to take a step back, understand what the big picture of the tech is, and what the big picture of the company is as well. If you understand your business better, it can help you with trade-offs and small decisions along the way. So in a pure agile world, you do your task, you deliver it. Next sprint, you do your next task. You don't actually, Agile is designed to stop you over-engineering and make stuff before you need it. Whereas I advocate for something a little bit less pure than that. If you understand the next 6, 12 months of the backlog, maybe now you just write a generic function, it's going to come in handy later. It takes 2 minutes now, but it stops a refactoring and a retest later by someone else who doesn't understand your code. Little subtle things about the future, like little subtle things in your code can be informed by the future. So just having a bit of awareness about the situation, not just I'm going to write the minimum code to make my test pass. Little decisions like that and trade-offs come into it. So that can help you become quite quick, quite fast. Being aware of your surroundings. The number of people I've worked with who have had a problem come to me and be like, I've got this problem. I'm like, John solved this last week. He wrote a big thing about it. He did a talk in the chapter meeting about it. Why are you not listening? This is a solved problem. Why have you spent a day on this? He's already made a function you can just call to do this. Being aware of your surroundings at work helps you move faster because other people are solving the similar problem to you. Especially a company like Baloo, right? This this company makes multiple apps for multiple clients. Chances are there's a decent amount of shared code between those things. They might have a standard module for a certain subtask. They probably just pinch that from the other app and bring it to the other one. So having a decent understanding of what's going on around the company, even if it's not the same problem or the same application, helps. So pay attention to your Slack channels. That guy that keeps posting links about, oh, this is cool, I'm that guy at work. Worth reading, worth answering emails, worth going to those kind of questionable chapter meetings that sometimes pop up, going to sprint reviews, anytime there's a demo or anything like that, and going, cool, I'm going to build a mental map of who knows what. My dad always used to say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's like, because of what they know. So if you know, hey, John worked on that thing last week, John's the expert, I'm going to go have a chat to John. Sally worked on this thing, I'm going to have a chat to Sally. You'll be able to speed up. So you want to minimize that time from I've got an issue to I know how to unblock myself. That's a big part of pace. Slowing down to speed up sounds counterintuitive, but sometimes the fastest way forward in the long run is slowing down now and learning something properly. And this could be something, I'm sure you've all got something in your mind that every time you do it, you probably have to look it up or hack at it until it works, until the compiler goes green or something, and you're like, I really should just learn this properly. Maybe it's the syntax of async or wait, or how to do a properly escaping, completion block or something like that, or the weak self dance is the one I always had to paste in from a text note when I did iOS development. Don't just hack away at things. Actually slow down, learn it properly, and then it's just never a problem again. Takes discipline, takes practice, takes time, but you do need to do it. You'll just move faster in the long run. Two-way doors. Man, this is something that people get wrong all the time. We are building software, okay? We can change it anytime we like, and that's okay. We're not building bridges. We're not building the new metro, okay? If we're wrong, chances are we can change it with minimal impact on users and that sort of stuff. So don't spend 3 months overthinking something, just start. Okay, because if you learn something that changes your mind, you can change the code. It's lovely to work in software. Enjoy the privilege. You can't do that when you're building chairs, tables, roads, bridges. Give yourself options when you're coding to think about, what if I'm wrong here, okay? What if this product's requirement comes through changed, or I'm going to make an assumption that's going to get confirmed by marketing in a month's time, but I'll just start, we can start now. If you're wrong, think about what your reverse path is, and that could be anything. It could be thinking about, okay, maybe instead of one class to do these two things, I'll make them two separate classes and try make smaller composable units. I might, make an internal package and share it with my team via SPM or something like that. It's just easier if you think more defensively about the state of software and think about what if this changes, what are the flexibility in my architecture, what can I do to undo this? And it means you have that courage to just start. The amount of time we lose on hesitation is quite high in the software industry when really we could just start coding and figure it out as we go. Try refactor once you get the final picture. But yeah, don't panic about getting it right the first time. That's the first section. The next section, mastering your tools. So, mastering your language. By now, people in this room, I think most people here are day-to-day Swift developers. I'm not. That's not. Swift should flow out of your fingers. Just like English does when you're texting. It should just flow out. That's your job, man. Like, it should just flow out of your fingers, or whatever language you write in. You should have muscle memory for it. You should be able to do it with your eyes closed. You should be able to write, a method that takes 3 arguments, returns something. It has a non-escaping block. You should have all that syntax memorized. You shouldn't be looking it up. That is just pace. And you sometimes need to practice this, because if you're at a slow-moving company where it takes a month to talk about a piece of work that maybe is 100 lines of code, you're not going to get the practice you need. So you want to go do practice coding. It's like writing lines on a blackboard. And that could, I don't mean like leak code, like it can just be normal stuff, like for normal people, not leak code. But just practice the syntax. And I got really good at this a couple of years ago when I was contracting and doing React. And I got very good at writing, function, property name, open angle bracket, property type, close angle bracket, open curly bracket, destructured argument. I got really good at writing the signature of a React component over and over and over again. and it just flows out of my fingers. Now I've been in management for 2 years. I can feel my muscle memory weakening. There's times where I hesitate with my TypeScript syntax. I'm like, oh God, this feels horrible. So I still do some practice just to make sure it's there. It sounds weird, practicing code. Who practices code? Well, if you want to be faster, you have to write more code. And I can guarantee you, unless you're at a super fast-paced company, your backlog tasks alone will not be enough to get your muscle memory to the best place it can be. Using IDE extensions. Now, look, I use VS Code. It's the dream. Xcode, sorry. But there are some, and they are good. Find them, install them, tell people about them, and recommend them to people. Practice using them as well. I mean, are you actually good at using the Git integration in Xcode? Are you good at using the Copilot integration? Do you think every time, oh, I need to do a commit, do you instantly go to your Git UI? Do you go to Git on the command line? Do you go to Git in Xcode? Which one are you instinctively doing? So you got to practice using them. I'm going to say practice a lot tonight. And then when you come across that task in your head, you go, I need to do this thing. I have a tool for that. I know how to use the tool. I'm good at the tool. I'm fast at the tool. I've done the thing. That takes work. It takes practice, unfortunately. What we do in our backend code bases in my team at CocoaHeads is we have the ability to actually check in files to the code base that then tells VS Code, hey, if they're not installed, install these recommended plugins. So every time someone opens one of our code bases and they're new to the team, their VS Code is going to pop up being like, this code base thinks you should have X, Y, Z extensions installed. And our team kind of has a list of maybe 5 to 10 that are recommended on all of our code bases just because we know they save time and they're well vetted and well tested. There's a link here to awesome Xcode extensions. Yeah, I remember back in the day, there was a brief period of time, I think Xcode 5 or 6 had like a Xcode third-party extension app store thing. There was like a Mac app you can get, and it was great. Then they broke it, so that was fun. You can also, if you see someone struggling and you know their tool would help them, if you're peer programming with them, just stop, set up the extension for them, show them how to use it, and go, cool, you can train other people on this too. You have to keep it to yourself. Terminal aliases and dot files. So if you ever find yourself in the terminal, there is a technique in most shell languages called aliases. That means you can create an alias. That means a long command can come short things. So I've got one called GCO, which stands for get check out. Instead of writing get check out branch name, I just write GCO. I've also got GCOB, check out branch, which is checks out a branch and creates a branch and changes myself to it. You'll find ones that make sense. You'll also see on GitHub, people checking their dot files. A dot file is a generic term for configuration files for Unix-based operating systems, of which Mac is one. So you might want to look at this link, Ultimate Guide to Dot Files, to see if there's things you want to set up long-term. And I've taken the same dot files from job to job to personal computer to job throughout my whole career, and it's just been iterated on that whole time. So my dot files, unique to me and how I think and how I like to work, but very powerful for doing anything fast in the command line. So if you've got something you're doing all the time, like clearing derived data, instead of doing an RM, RF, and then dragging in the path of derived data, you might just have like DD or something like derived data goodbye, something like that. So have a look at dot files. They're a really powerful tool if you find yourself in the terminal a lot. I do, so hopefully maybe you do too. Lean into your tool. Most of you will use Xcode or something similar every day. It's a powerful IDE. It's not the best IDE, but it's powerful. And it's a pretty good visual editor for interface builder, has instruments, all these sorts of things. Learn how to use it, learn how to use it well. You'd be very nervous if a plumber came to your house and was like, I'm pretty new to these wrench things. You'd be like, leave my house. So it'd be nervous to see an iOS developer goes, I don't really know my way around Xcode. You're like, well, you should probably know that thing like the back of your hand. If you're in it 8 hours a day, you should know pretty much every menu item, every button, every feature. Go practice them. And then be on the lookout for like new things that come to it. You should definitely watch every year the WWDC What's New in Xcode talk. Then go and download it and then practice because it'll become helpful. You can ask and give recommendations for people and tools and techniques in Xcode as well. So lean into it. It's a great tool. If you're not using Xcode, using that one from JetBrains, learn that one too. No one uses that anymore? Did they kill it? It's dead? They did.
People who write TypeScript sometimes use
A web storm or something. Yeah. Anyway, it's cool. Use it. Be an expert in your tools. So not only lean into them, but just get good at them. Like you just have to get good at them. You probably spend most of your day in Xcode, probably GitHub, maybe like a cloud platform or something similar, maybe like a GitGUI, or you could probably think of something, maybe Atlassian's Jira, Confluence. You probably just want to learn those tools. You should know how to do a normal thing in Jira. You should know how to, create a branch in your Git client. You should know how to do a diff like resolution if you've got a diff conflict. You need to practice them. You need to get good at them. Once again, if you had a tradesman come to your house and they look to be struggling with their tools, you would feel deeply uncomfortable. So how do you think I feel as a manager watching my people struggle with the IDE that they're meant to be using all day, every day? It just makes me uncomfortable as well. So it's the little things too, like, do you know multi-cursor editing? It's in Xcode. It's good. Your fingers have to contort like you're having a seizure to get it to work, but like it's there. Do you know how to restart Xcode without actually quitting the app? Do you know how to reset the state in Xcode? Do you know how to install new simulators or clean out the old ones? Do you know how to bump packages in SPM or CocoaPods or Carthage? Do you know how to jump to the definition? Do you know how to use the debugger, the little thing that you just use PO for? There's other things you can do, not just PO. Did you know? Do you know how to use instruments? There's so many good things in instruments. And I don't just mean like that cool thing that makes the UI look like that just for fun. There's actual like good, useful stuff. Do you know how to get to the documentation on any Apple provided class immediately? There's a shortcut for it. You should know that. I don't. As I said, disclaimer, I don't know everything. Do you know when like Xcode is like subtly shitting itself? Like it's just broken, or the, like all the text goes gray and you're like, oh, it's time to restart it. Like the Swift runtime, the language server just dies. I've worked with people who like have VS Code open and there's just red squiggles everywhere. And the linter isn't kicking in, their extension for the linting isn't working. They're like, the file resolution isn't working. I'm like, what are you doing? And it's like watching someone like being in a car and they've just like cut out the bottom so it's like, like the Flintstones, and they're just kind of like walking the car down the street, and it's like, it's broken, right? You need to restart this thing, or you need to stop and fix your plugins. Don't be that person. I've seen it before. All of this stuff, I've seen it before. Hate to say it. So yeah, be an expert in your tools. Do get good at it. If you're going to call yourself an iOS developer, if you want to identify like that, which you probably do if you're here at this meetup, you should probably be very good at Xcode. All right, efficient workflow practices. Now you're probably thinking about this tip as your first tip. Let's talk about copying and pasting. It's our best friend. You need to learn how to do it effectively. Don't just blindly copy some code from Stack Overflow and paste it in and then just get upset that it's not working. You probably want to read it, understand it. Copying and pasting is not necessarily about not having to write or think about the code. It's more just being able to skip the actual typing of the letters. Sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes you want to look at the code on like Stack Overflow or a blog post or something like that and go, cool, I get the idea. I'm not going to use that code though, because it doesn't match our team's style, or I'm not using that particular class, or I don't like structs. I don't know. I don't know why you wouldn't. They're great. So sometimes you want to copy the idea and not just the code. So think about that, copying the idea, not the code. There's two questions you can ask yourself when you're working on something and you get stuck. Getting stuck is like the main reason we lose time, right? Firstly, you can say, surely another team has solved this. And that's what I was talking about, being aware earlier. If you know that another team solved it, someone's worked on it because you heard about them in the chapter, or you saw the merge request go past, something like that, the pull request go past. Surely another team has solved this. You can just go look at their code. Hop into your GitHub or your GitLab account, go look it up there and go, oh, I reckon it's in this file. And you go, boom, yeah, that's what they've done. Oh, there's an argument I didn't know about. Copy, paste, run, you're done. And then you can also ask yourself, surely not the first person in the world to do this. And so you type your problem into Google, and there's probably a Stack Overflow or a Reddit post about it. If you get like no results, then I'm really sorry. That does happen from time to time. It's probably you at that point. But if you're having a common problem, Google, Stack Overflow, Reddit is your friend. And once again, being aware of your surrounding really helps here, because the industry and your team is doing stuff. Coming to CocoaHeads is a great way to be aware of your surroundings. You are learning stuff in these sessions. Hopefully you're learning stuff from me. I know Async Wait was really interesting for me. it's good. Now you have that in your mental toolbox for when you hit that problem. You go, okay, I've got a long running task I need to do. Async await looks nicer than callbacks. I'm going to try that. So being aware of your surroundings, but do think about that idea of copying the idea and not the code. Too many people copy the code and just try to like hack it in there. Don't do that. Searching documentation. You will notice that every page about every class in the Apple documentation looks roughly the same. They start off with a title and a brief description, and they talk about like the class members. They might talk about like the delegates and the data sources and the other things you can do. You should know roughly how far to scroll down to get to the thing you want to do. You should know how to search that page with your Command F. You should know roughly what you're looking for when you're looking for documentation. Once again, slow down to speed up, practice this. You might also notice that if you use like a third-party framework like Fire or insert third-party framework you all use at the moment that I'm out of touch with, they might have used like a document generator framework to make their online docs. And you might notice they all start to look the same. There's always like a search bar and a toggle dark mode thing in the top right, and there might be like a menu on the left. And you go, cool, I recognize this open source docs generator. I roughly know how these work. I'm going to the search bar, I know the search is good on this thing, or I'm going to go look manually because I know the search is garbage. Recognize those things and use them. Read the docs, and there's a few other ones that generate documentation that most third-party SDKs use. Knowing how to get to the documentation from your IDE, the time it takes to being halfway through a line of code, realizing you don't know what you're doing with this class, you need to look up a method on it, and getting to the docs, you want to make that time as short as possible. You want to make that time from I need the docs to I'm at the docs, and I'm at the right place in the docs. You want to shorten that time window as much as possible. It saves seconds, and once again, I said earlier, all these things sound pedantic in isolation, but once again, saving 3 seconds every couple of hours, it adds up. Knowing the things you need to Google, knowing terms, really helpful. Bookmarking things, I could have a whole section on bookmarking later, can be really helpful. So searching documentation smartly is important. It's nothing, you're not failing, you haven't lost if you have to go to the documentation. It's why it exists. Someone spent the time writing it just so you can spend the time reading it. Don't be afraid of just going and looking it up. It's fine. Shortening your debug loop. Oh, man, this is one that people get wrong all the time. I had a situation the other day where someone was using a@a.com as a login on one of our test servers. And I was like, what if someone actually has a.com and we're accidentally emailing them something? Can you please use our company domain for the thing? And that person was like, no, that's too long to type in. I'm like, what do you mean it's too long to type in? He's like, well, every time I launch the app, I need to log in so I can then debug my feature. And I'm like, why have you not just quickly hard-coded that so you can just tap login and keep going? Or why have you not even disabled the login functionality altogether? Like, you're going to be, you're spending a minute logging in and you're launching and running how many times? Like maybe 100 times today. You're spending an hour logging in and you could have spent a minute just disabling the login or pre-filling in the fields. Your debug loop is the time it takes from you to write your code to see if it worked. You want to shorten that window as much as possible. Okay, and it should be reasonably instant, right? Because in your IDE, you'll get a red line if you do your syntax wrong. Maybe your unit test immediately runs and goes, nah, wrong. The worst I can think of this is like CI jobs, when you're trying to do a CI job, and it's like, cool, I find out 10 minutes later if this one bash command, I don't really understand bash, works to work with, like uploading it to the App Store or something like that. That's the annoying one. But generally, you want to keep that thing down to like milliseconds, if not seconds. If you're not getting down to like minutes, it could be worth changing approach. And that could be things like stop using a device and go back to the simulator if you can. It could be things like, I just need to figure out this method. I'm just going to use a playground, an empty Swift file just to prove it works. And then when I'm happy, clonk, paste it in, build and run for sanity check, and then it's done. I don't have to build and run a whole app, recompile all the modules just to see if I got this logic right in this algorithm. You might also want to do a demo app. If you're trying to build a nice transition between 2 screens or something custom, just build a demo app. Just start a blank page, focus just on that thing, get it working, then bring it back to the main app. Chances are it'll work, and just build yourself tools to make yourself go faster. In the woodworking world, these are called like rigs or jigs or something like that. And you often see like, I always need to cut things that are exactly 30 centimeters long. So I just have a 30 centimeter long thing and I just cut with the original one. And it's like a simple tool just to help you going. building yourself tools is really, really powerful. So shorten that debug loop. That's where a lot of your time is wasted, just waiting for things to compile. And especially if you go wander off and open TikTok or Reddit, you'll lose even more time. So if you can try to stay focused and stay in the zone, great. Bookmarking everything. Hard habit to get into, worth doing. Websites, code snippets, put that in your code snippet management tool. Curls, postman requests, if you've got any network calls you need to make, maybe someone on the back-end team has given you one to be like, and this is me making it work, so if it doesn't work in your app, it's your fault. If it's useful, bookmark it. Spend time effectively organizing your bookmarks. I don't just have like 1,000 things in the Chrome bar, like put them in folders and groups, or like break them into subjects. Spend an hour every 6 months reorganizing your bookmarks. It will pay off. And then you have to also mentally bookmark it. You need to remember you made a bookmark for it and not just like go back to Google again. So try to like let that sink in. Once again, going from I want something to I'm got the thing I want, trying to shorten that down. This is it, scaling yourself. So if you've built an internal package or a sample code base, or even something that needs some documentation, just write the documentation. It can do the talking for you. I'm doing it right now. Next time someone says, Sam, how can I go faster? I'm linking them to this talk. You know, I don't have to go over one-on-one with them, explain them all the shit again. I've scaled myself now. I've got a recorded version of this talk. Great, win-win. I notice that camera's not pointing at me. I don't know if it should be, but that one was great. Hi. So if, one way to think about this, kind of harsh, but true. If someone asks you about your code that you've shared with the team and you don't want to be asked about it again, you've sort of failed. You know, if you've built like a component library or a little helper function and someone says, hey, Sam, how does this work? Oh, you've really messed up. You know, it should do talking for you. And every time you spend your time telling people about how something works, it's time you can't do your own work. And I think we probably all know someone at our company who's just not really a developer anymore, just the historian, you know, just the archivist of the code base, the sage, wise old person. And all they do all day is to explain what they did 10 years ago. Because they didn't write any fucking documentation, and they did not leave clues for anyone, and that's not a job. Like, it's valuable, but it's not a job. That person can't get any code in. Do not become that person. Scale yourself. So yeah, let that one sink in. I could talk about that one all day. Automating repetitive tasks, well, obviously, but actually do it. So in my team, when I first joined my team, the cloud team at CocoaHeads, I observed different people on the team, different members of the team have like little scripts that did common things we needed to do. You know, convert IDs from one format to another, connect to certain servers, all these sorts of little things. And I was like, how did you do that? I just watched you do that, get a token for backend or something like that. And they're like, oh, I've got a little script. I'm like, cool, can the rest of us have that? So what I had actually did was actually pulled all those things together into a single command line interface tool, a CLI. And we call it the CLI for the clinical cloud. We call it Click. This sounded cool. And so it's just click, blah, do the thing. It's great. Your team should probably have one of these if you find yourself doing company-specific repetitive tasks. And it makes things easy. Swift is a great scripting language. And if you find yourself doing something, you can write the language you already know and automate it. Automation is getting easier, and also things like shortcuts for Mac, Automate for Mac, all sorts of stuff. If you haven't had one recently, have like an automation hackathon at your company. I'm sure people on your team are probably like really desperate to automate some stuff. Give them, you know, a couple like 2-3 working days to do it. We had one recently. It was awesome, absolutely awesome. So automated stuff works, pays off. Now the developer trap is like taking 3 hours to automate something that you do and takes 1 minute a year. You know, find the balance. But you know, there's a skill there and a craft there to figure out what's going to pay off long term. And I think if you find yourself doing something a lot, that's a good signal that it's worth automating. Next thing is stay busy. I've had the disfortune of people with working who have gone, oh, my task is in code review. It's going to hang out, you know. try to have 2 or 3 things on the go from your backlog at once. I tend to procrastinate on my tasks with other tasks, the more fun ones. Don't just try to wait for the next day to stand up. Go to your manager or your leader and go, I want something else. I also have something in my team that we call, the name is confusing, but we just have like a practice task backlog essentially. We've got some really low priority internal things like, hey, the code base needs its linting library updated, or this one needs to move from node 20 to 22. And so if you want some practice work or you want to like get some experience doing that, people pick up the tasks from the practice backlog, and we get about 1 or 2 of those done a month with just as a sign of how often people come blocked, which is not often, which is good. But 1 or 2 of those things come up. They get a pack of Tim Tams if they do it, because it kind of helps us. It's also incentivizing practice. But it's good to have like a little mental backlog, like I want to get to that one day. You might have a little bit of tech debt, you might want to automate something. Just stay busy, keep that density of experience up. And yeah, there's always something else to do. And you know, if you tell your leader, oh, it doesn't seem like there's much for me to do, they will get angry at you. They have a mental backlog years ahead of you, and they'll have something for you immediately. So just ask, they'll give you something. So stay busy. Collaboration and knowledge sharing. Very important part to keeping a good pace up. Leaving and reading clues in a code base. So code changes over time, we add to it, we remove stuff from it, we take stuff out and replace it. Small but powerful actions can help here. Things like leaving comments, updating the README file after you made it not true because you changed the code, and maintaining like a well-structured code base. So you might be following like an architectural pattern like MVP or MVM. Following that is a clue to the next person as to where to put the view code versus where to put the model code. And that, I say that not because I want you to become altruistic, amazing people. I just want that because I want you to do that because the chances are the next person to change that code base is you, and you have forgotten what you did last time you're in there. So leave clues at least for yourself, but altruistically for your teammates as well. When you get to a code base, try to read the room, try to understand what is happening and how it's happening and the structure, and don't just jump into trying to find. I think we've all seen people try to catch errors in the wrong layer or hard code a string in the wrong place, or put a catch statement in the wrong place. Try to read the room. What do you know? Just a couple of clues. Really like subtle example of this I use all the time in JavaScript, and applies to Swift too, is like, if I feel like there's a scenario, right? I've got like an enum with cases, that's kind of the metaphor. If I feel like, okay, there's one scenario to handle for now, so I'll just do an if statement. If scenario, do this thing, otherwise do the normal thing. One alternate flow. If I feel like, because I know the backlog 6 months in advance, that there might be other scenarios coming down the line, what I'll do is I'll just make an enum now. And I'll be like, enum is regular flow, alternate flow number 1, alternate flow number 2. And maybe even just comment out alternate flow number 2. And then I'll do a switch case statement instead. So that gives a clue to the next person, which might be me, this is the place to add that alternate flow. Really subtle, but really powerful. If you've got one scenario now, but it could be 2 in the future, switch to an enum. Make it obvious where to change. In fact, if you put a new case on an enum and hit compile, your code base will just come alive and tell you, you need to handle it here, you need to handle it over here, you need to handle it over here. It's a really powerful tool, using something like an enum over if else. And of course, know your code architecture patterns. If you don't know your code architecture patterns, ask to pair with someone, get them to just give you a rundown of the code base. This is where you put this kind of code, this is where you put this kind of code, this is where you put this kind of code. 10-minute explainer will probably save you hours in the long run. Documenting what you're learning. So if you're struggling to learn something, I would recommend documenting it, giving a talk on it, what I'm doing right now. Writing it down or saying it out loud helps you reference it later. It sinks into your brain harder and makes you remember it better. It doesn't have to be a talk. If the idea of standing in front of a room of people and constantly trying to make eye contact with everyone else freaks you out, fair enough, it freaks me out too. You can do a blog post instead, or you can do a tweet, or you can make a TikTok about it. You can even do like a personal diary that doesn't go anywhere. Just open a Word document and then save it again. Just let it reflect, let it sink in, do something about it. Every time you learn something new, try to learn it to the point where you could probably teach it again. If you can teach it, you've probably understood it really well. And if you know it really well, you'll go fast. Asking for help at the right time. This is a topic on its own, but mastering the timing or knowing when to ask for help is absolutely an art. There's no science, there's no rules. It's a skill you will build over your career. Some people might try to tell you it's the 15-minute rule, the 3-hour rule, the 2 approaches rule. None of that stuff really works. It depends. Classic developer, it depends. Do reach out if you're stuck, but do give it a good go. I think as a person who's a more senior member of a team, I feel respected. My time feels respected when someone comes up to me and says, hi, I'm trying to do this. I've tried approach A, approach B, and approach C. None of them are working. And I can go, cool, you were close, it's actually approach D. Or you were right with A, but you just did it wrong, or it's actually A variation number 3, and that's how you go. So it's more about giving it a good go, ruling out some stuff, and then as you ask people for others, inspiring, like instilling confidence in them that you've had a good go and you're respecting their time. Don't do that too soon though. Every time you ask for help, you've robbed yourself of a learning opportunity. But I don't want people spending 3 days on something that I know Jeff knows about. Just ask Jeff. So balance that, you know. There'll be times in you... What's that?
And you write my homework.
Yeah, that's right. It's that whole like teach a man to fish versus give him a fish. There's that sort of wisdom there that you want to find that balance. And I think where I found that balance in my career was when I was working at a reasonably interesting company in terms of culture, and I was sort of left on my own to do something that I was quite out of the weeds on. It was just me, the error messages in Google versus the world. And, you know, I learned like really good, like relying on myself habits of just trying to problem solve. I didn't really have the opportunity to ask for help. And now I feel very confident in just solving error messages as I just slow down, read them, understand them properly. So there's always going to be a time where you want to slow down and learn it properly, but there's going to be times where it's like you're just watching someone on your team, wasting time, you just want to go over them, and it's like, oh, it's this thing. So try to find that balance. Once again, you'll get better at that. You won't get good at it, you'll just get better. You'll just suck less at it. I've certainly seen, you know, juniors in the company, we've said things like, hey, try this for 2 hours and then ask for help. And you can see like after about the first 15 minutes, they're just waiting for the 2 hours to finish so they can go like ask for help. Don't do that. Okay, that's why I'm not suggesting rules. Just give it a good go, and when you feel like you're stuck, then ask for help and tell people what you've done so far. Continuous improvement. Practice makes perfect. Side projects, hackathons, internal tools can give you more practice of this. There's plenty to do online, open source projects, leak code, everything and anything. The more you code, the better you'll become. It's a cliche, practice makes perfect. And once again, as I said earlier, there's always more to do at your day job. Ask your leader if you want more work. They'll find something for you. It might not be well refined, it might not be ready to start, but they'll have something for you. Reflecting often, okay, locking in your learnings. Reflecting is really important. It will accumulate. This is a phrase, this little maths equation here is something I've been pulling out lately. Work plus reflection equals experience. And I think the opposite is also true. If you have experience minus reflection, I think you just have sensations. And sometimes people are like, I've got 5 years of experience. I'm like, you've got 5 years of sensations. Work's happened to you, but you haven't got the experience. Really reflecting locks in those learnings, and it solidifies that sort of pattern matching toolbox in our brains of this was the situation, these are the unique parts of the situation, and this is what we did, and this is why that will work next time, or this is why that won't work next time. So you always got to ask yourself, how is this different from the last time? How is that the same as the last time? Where would that work again in a future situations? Where would that not work in a situation? And everything can basically come down to those kind of 4 questions. If you have done a unit of work and you can't answer those 4 questions because you've copied and pasted or someone's given you the answer, you should go and ask someone who can explain that to you, or Google it. That way you lock in the learnings, because then when you come across that situation again in the future, you can either use that previous thing you've done and apply the same problem, or you can understand that, hey, it's actually subtly different this time, and the thing I used last time won't work at all. And this is where people say like, oh, native apps are the only way, or like React natives is the only way. There's that old phrase that if you have a hammer, everything is a nail. So if you only know one way to do things, every job sort of gets contorted into the one thing. You see it all the time. You've got to be willing to go this is sufficiently different that my experience to date doesn't quite fit. I need to solve it anew. So reflecting is really important. Work plus reflection equals experience. All right, we're getting towards the end. Some words on AI. I have to cover AI in here.
Yeah.
It's the LL elephant in the room. That was the one joke for tonight. There's lots to be said on AI. I can spend the whole night talking to you. I think it's bad to naively dismiss AI as a bad thing. I think it's bad to naively evangelize it as the next coming of Jesus. We're developers, we're engineers. Obviously, there's a middle ground, right? It is clear to hopefully everyone in this room that it is going to present a step change in technology and perhaps even to society. Maybe not now. Maybe it still can't find how many R's in the word strawberry. But we're on a path to have something akin to fire or the wheel or the combustion engine or the smartphone. It's staring at us. We don't necessarily know what it can do yet, but it's looking pretty interesting. And so what I want you to do is just get curious about it. Okay, try it out. And then retry it out every 3 to 6 months because it's moving faster than you are. Try out a few things, see if it works for you, because it is going to get to the point where it's going to be a powerful tool, hopefully one that doesn't replace us, but it might. Getting curious about it and trying it out in your day-to-day is important. Get it set up in Xcode or even switch IDEs. We've got some of our mobile developers at work doing things in VS Code just because it has superior AI tools. It can make you go faster, and it probably will make you go faster. But similar to asking for help from Google or a colleague, you might be robbing yourself of a learning opportunity that would help you move faster in the long run. So keep an eye out for that. It does have its issues, right? AI consumes an inordinate amount of power to train models, and that concerns me for the planet on which we like to live and breathe on. It's obviously been trained on stuff that's copyrighted, and there's lots of concerns around the creativity of AI art and all that sort of stuff, right? But I think it's naive just to blindly hate it and reject it, and I think it's also naive to blindly evangelize it. Annoyingly, you'll find a lot of people in the AI world who are just zealots, right? They will just say it's the best thing ever. If you're not using it, you're an idiot. There's a lot of bullshitters around the AI world. Yeah, that's right. So try to ignore those people and try to just see it for what it is, okay? It's a thing that's seen a lot more code than you have. And if you're doing something that you know a lot of other people have, like writing or finishing the line of code that you're working on, chances are it can do that for you. If you're doing something novel and completely new, it's not going to help you because it hasn't been trained on millions of examples of the same thing. But if you know you're doing something very standard, like how do I download an image and load it into an image object, AI is going to be great for that. So you're going to need to start developing an intuition of when AI will be helpful and when AI is not going to be helpful. And then revisit that intuition. Because it's not just training data. There's techniques to inject information from the internet at runtime. Or like say, I need you to go read this blog post and then tell me what's wrong with my code. These things can happen. So stay curious about it. Don't get put off by the weirdos on both sides of the argument. And yeah, just try it out. Stay curious. Because I think it's going to help you go incredibly fast. In conclusion, moving faster is not about rushing. It's not about building crap. It's about developing habits, practicing those habits, and continuously refining your process to get faster and faster. Please start implementing these tips today or even tomorrow, and you will watch your productivity soar. The aggregate effect of these tips is where the magic happens. If you can pick up 2, 3, 5 things from me tonight, you think, oh, I should really get around to doing that, setting up my dot files or installing an extension in Xcode, great. Do that and you'll see that happen in aggregate. And good luck. I think it's important it's a very personal journey moving fast. It's about you, your fingers, your brain, the way your brain works. So yeah, that's all on you. That's just a few ideas for moving faster. Thank you.
Sam, are you happy to take questions?
Yeah, happy
Cool.
to.
Do we have any questions?
Yes.
Some questions, some comments, and whatever.
Okay.
So very early, I should have taken notes. You had the comment about in business discussions, etc., of understanding the problem. I'd probably add more that if you actually understand a bit more about, ask good questions, because sometimes product or whatever your structure, who's written the tickets don't actually think about all the edge cases. If you ask the right questions earlier, that will help the whole process move forward, because they might go, we're going to pull this back, we're going to bring it back to you in a week, when we've actually thought through the cases.
Yeah.
So that's useful. On the memory practice, set with hands,
Muscle memory, yeah.
I totally disagree.
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
If it's a
Why?
piano and you learn to play the piano,
Yeah.
pianos don't change over 40 years.
Yeah.
Language syntax does.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And having worked in 20 plus languages in 40 years, I'm sorry, but Swift 2 years ago isn't the same Swift today. So the practice is just a waste of time.
Okay.
Look at its auto suggest. I completely disagree with that one.
Did you feel yourself, not to like try to fight you on this, but like towards the end of the language before you switched, did you feel yourself faster?
No, but I worked several years in a language which only had like one major update every 10 years.
Yeah.
I still typed the same stupid mistakes over and over. Didn't make any difference. It didn't really slow me down. I just Eden instead of end. Whoopee. It's not a big deal. Didn't slow me down about solving the problem. So I don't really think finger memory is terribly useful. The documentation, you sort of skimmed around it when you came back to it, but I think the bit about not just other documentation is make use of the documentation in the code.
Yeah.
We've got the tools within Swift language and Xcode. If you write your own docs, and you're exactly right. I worked with a fantastic developer for over 10 years. Genius, couldn't remember what he worked on last week.
Yeah.
You will be the person who comes back and go, what does this do? Every time I open a piece of code that's 3-4 years old and there's one line comment at the top, spew.
Yeah.
So yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Excellent talk though. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think just one thing that you said there sparked a thought around understanding the business problem more. There's always that scenario where, like, I think this is probably the same in mobile as it is in web dev, but like you might have like a visual hierarchy, right? And moving a button from halfway up the screen to the top of the screen seems simple in a product owner's mind, but for you it's like actually a refactoring, and you have to bubble the state to a different place and bubble the the action back up. Just ask, like, hey, does it matter if it's here or there? Because that's like 2 hours work. Can it just be here? And they might just go, oh, it's fine. It just needs to be there. And you go, oh, cool. I've just saved myself 2 tedious hours of refactoring a view hierarchy. So yeah, little things like that. Always challenge little things to see if you can save yourself some time. Yes.
Yep. How can we use chapter meetings to go faster?
Yeah, good question. I think a big part of chapter meetings is kind of sharing what you've learned. So what we do in my team is often we're in the cloud space. There's a lot of tools in AWS, right? There's like hundreds of services, and every now and then we try a new one. We need to use a new one, and what we often do, and we've got like a joke about in the team now. It's like we're like, oh, that's a chapter talk, or we called it Cloud and Learn, so we say, oh, it's a Cloud and Learn talk. We try to like force people into saying, I tried this worked, this didn't quite work, this was a gotcha. Try to like capture the learnings. So always kind of be teaching about the things you're working on. And we also have a very low bar of like, I learned a thing. We've had talks about someone made a karaoke app at home and languages and technologies we don't even use at work. But it was interesting to kind of hear about the process because there was a couple of things to pick up with there. I did a talk recently on buying a new TV and the wonders of the subtle difference between HDMI 2.0, 2.1 and 2.2, which means I had to partially rewire my house to get my PlayStation to be 120 frames per second on my new TV because I bought a fancy TV and a fancy console and it wasn't working. So I went learning about the HDMI spec. So just weird shit, and you keep the momentum going. We've just passed it in my team after 4 years. We've just passed our 75th chapter meeting. We number them. It was yesterday, number 75. I'm pretty proud of that. But I think just having a really positive environment means that people are willing to share, lead by example, share yourself. I'm always kind of there's a couple of people on my team who always step up and fill the gap if there's a gap available in the hour slot. But yeah, just sharing what you've learned is a big part of it. So then people know to come talk to you if they're stuck. Does that make sense? Yeah, cool.
I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
The first is, you mentioned using what's available in your IDE.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line? So oftentimes you'll find that you could use arguably better software. You might be more efficient with software that's outside of your IDE, but obviously there's a cost involved of switching to that application or to that window or whatever.
Yeah.
When's the trade-off worth it to use IDE or
Well, the trade-off's always like how long will this take and how much like time will I save? But I'll give you a practical example. So like right now, Visual Studio Code has a mode in it where you can ask a question of the LLM and it will constantly re-prompt itself and navigate its way through your code base to answer the question. So you might be in an iOS code base and you might be looking, you might be thinking like, how do I authenticate to the API? I've got no idea. I know there's a few different ways to do it. I'm new to this code base, I don't know how. And you might go, okay, cool, well, there's a login button. Let me start there. And then you go, like, where does that go? And that calls that thing. And you find yourself spending like an hour jumping through implementations just to find like the authentication.swift file. In that scenario, we're helping our developers by saying, hey, look, just open the code base in VS Code. Don't worry about installing like a Swift extension or anything like that. We're not going to compile it in there. We're just using it as like a text editor. And then the LLM just starts weaving its way through the code and it goes, hey, it uses bearer token authentication. It happens in this file. It's a header, says authentication, it's got the word bearer in front of it. There's a token. That's how it works. And that thing takes like 2 minutes to kind of just think about it on its own, saving you an hour. So I find if you're going to have a trade-off like that, you're going to save yourself an hour for 2 minutes of work. That's good. I think like whether you switch from one IDE to another IDE, or back in the day when Interface Builder was a separate app from Xcode, you'd have to switch all the time. So yeah, does that kind of answer the question? I think I'm
yeah, like so you're still saying like use the right tool for the right job, not use the command line that's in your IDE if it's
that's right. Like if you like iTerm better than a built-in terminal on your thing, or you like Get Tower over the Get thing, use Get Tower. Whatever works faster for you. But at the same time, you might find that resolving a diff is nicer in Xcode versus in Kaleidoscope or something like that. So you want to always just like keep surveying tools and staying curious as to something could be better out there. Because there are, we spend all our days making our software better for our customers. Guess what? So are the people that build your tools. And so we owe it to them to go try out new stuff to see if it's better now. So yeah.
Okay, second question.
Yeah.
Completely separate. So a lot of the tips and ideas and stuff are around working in a team and sort of being more efficient when you work with other people. What about do you have any tips for someone who might, say, work on it by themselves in their own projects or just be a solo developer on a project? You mentioned that you did a bit of that a few years ago. So any tips?
Yeah. Obviously, like paying attention to everyone else doesn't count in that situation, or just like reading the room. Or
there's no one you can tap.
There's no chapter meeting just by yourself. It'd be really weird. Just like you and a couple of pizzas by yourself. I think also at that point you're kind of setting your own deadlines a little bit. So you set your own expectations. But even when I'm doing solo dev, I'm like, well, this is still my life, and I don't want to write code on the weekend or something like that. So I'm in a rush or something. I think a lot of the tools around, a lot of the techniques around like knowing your tools and learning stuff and using knowledge from your day job, if you've got one, to go faster is great. But this is where I do find LLMs quite good. Like if you don't have a colleague, you've got a digital one. And the amount of time I've spent talking to LLMs about all sorts of stuff, because I've got no one to talk about it in my life. My wife doesn't actually know how the internals of our router works, so ChatGPT does, and so I talk to it instead to troubleshoot router issues. Is good. I do find AI a reasonably interesting intellectual sparring partner, particularly in situations where I know that what I'm asking is common knowledge. It's just not my knowledge, which is a lot of things. But I did a talk at work recently about using AI as a tutor. And AI is the nicest tutor you'll ever have. It doesn't judge you about not knowing something. And if you find yourself like not knowing a big concept, you're like, I don't really understand how code signing works. And at this point, I'm too afraid to ask. That classic meme. I usually just click the fix it button, and that didn't work this time. I probably need to know. You can go sit down with ChatGPT and be like, can you just like tell me what provisioning profiles are and what certificates are and what a public key is? I don't know. Is that just a key in the town square somewhere? What is that? It doesn't make any sense. And you can go, well, and you can do things like, I understand it's kind of like this, but it's not making sense. And it'll connect the dots for you and help you smooth over gaps in your knowledge. And I've done this on probably 20 topics in the last year that have just kind of smoothed over things in my head. And no one's judged me for it because I haven't told people until now.
It will never forget.
Yeah, it will never forget. You might want to do a private one if you don't want to really remember, but yeah. Okay, yeah, go for it. What's that?
It may suggest an answer is completely misleading.
That's right.
That sounds genuine.
As with all AI, you need to be able to verify it's not telling you nonsense. And hopefully you had the facilities to find that out. I wouldn't do like DIY medicine or anything, you know, something life-threatening. But yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah,
A couple of tips there. I do recommend trying out AI for just a sounding board. Or a rubber duck. I have a 3D printed duck on my desk.
Use ChatGPT as more of a sounding board, particularly for non-code related things. It's like, you know, you can be quite confident with some code things, but then you're doing other parts of your job and you're like, I don't actually know what I'm doing here.
It's read a lot of stuff that you don't want to read yourself. Like it knows a lot about ATO accounting rules. I've found out.
I don't think I trust it. But anyway.
It's not that I've been using it, but I'm just like, I want to know how like CapEx versus OpEx works, and I've asked it about that before. I'm like, I want to know what the difference between like capitalization and amortization is. Like that sounds like the same thing to me. And it's like, oh, it's because one's physical, one's not.
Concepts, sure.
Concepts are good, but not like,
I wouldn't be
how do I fill in my best? I wouldn't do that. Yeah. Yeah. Once again. Yeah. What's a tariff? How's it going to be amazing for our country?
No, that was anyway. Good answer. Thank you.
Cool.
Do we have any more questions?
Yeah.
I'll continue this trend of two.
Yeah. Okay.
So the first one is on the muscle memory thing.
Yeah.
The muscle memory for me is not the like typing it correctly, but it is being able to open the editor and just type something without having to look up the basics of syntax just to get started.
I have a small tip for this. Earlier in my career, I spent some time, like a lot of time doing Objective-C and then Swift, and then I spent some time in the Ruby programming language. And what I found really helpful was using a different IDE for Ruby with a different syntax highlighting. So my brain had a big visual clue to be like, hey, you're not doing Swift. You're not doing a curly bracket. They don't like it here. It's white space all the way. And that was really good for clicking out of it. And when I went to JavaScript, I had a different syntax highlighting. I think at that point I switched to dark mode in my IDEs. I think I was using light mode in Xcode, and this was my first dark mode IDE, and I'm not going back. That was a really good thing to be like, hey, just context clues visually worked for my brain. Once again, I said this is a personal journey, right? And you're right, like if you do, I'm an ex-piano player, and pianos have not changed, probably where the tip came from. And TypeScript hasn't really changed in the last couple of years. But yeah, just find something that works with your brain, you know, just gets you into that, I'm ready to type this syntax. Yeah, sorry. Next one.
Yeah, it absolutely, basically, I agree.
Yeah.
I also use different IDEs for different languages because then my brain doesn't try and write Python when I'm in the middle of writing TypeScript or vice versa.
That's right.
But so that was basically that thought. It's like, I think there is a ton of value in having the muscle memory of just how do I do some basic things in this so that you're only having to learn the hard stuff and not how do I make a button clickable.
Yeah, we're all right. It's personal.
I don't think that's muscle.
That's right.
Well, for me, that is muscle memory. Anyway, I have the mic, so but anyway, that was just a quick add-on to that thought. And the second one was around business context.
Yeah.
I think it is really, really important to understand like where your work fits into what the business is doing.
Yeah.
Because that helps you understand, do I need to take 6 months to get this right?
Or we're hacking it out.
Or do I need to get V0 of this that does literally anything out next week so that we can iterate on it with a customer who will leave if we don't, but will happily work with us to improve the bad thing.
Or just know the answer themselves at this point.
Yeah, they want to try something and see if it's the right thing.
Because at the end of the 6 months, you might have built something incredible that now everyone realizes doesn't actually, like it does something amazing, but not something useful.
Well said.
Know which of the things are worth spending days on versus which are the ones that are worth spending. Like don't just leave a massive wake of technical debt. It's just understand the business context, know know the things that are going to help the company continue to exist, because those are the things that help keep you having a job, and having a job is great because you get paid.
Yeah, it's knowing when to pull levers to take shortcuts or to go faster. Like another example could be like, hey, the website's down right now. You don't be like, oh, I'm just waiting for the pipeline to deploy the fix. I'm like, just go into AWS, click the button and put it back. You know, like just we'll fix it properly later. Just get it working again.
Make sure you can defend that when someone like me comes along and goes, what the hell?
Yeah, that's right. I'm like, well, there's a downtime. But yes, I think understand that business context can, as I said earlier, like subtle things can change based on the way you do it. I gave a talk, I think last year at CocoaHeads about single points of truth and how a concept called connaissance and how code grows over time and changes. And having a decent idea of the backlog can help you design stuff earlier on. It's not waterfall, we're not trying to design the whole thing up day one, but it's also just not being naive to the future and the reality of the business. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thanks again, Sam.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Just press the button. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming tonight. We're going to leave it here. So that's all we have for you. Feel free to stick around for a bit if you want to ask the speakers any more questions or have a chat. But otherwise, we'll catch you next month and we'll post the details on Meetup closer too. So get home safe and thanks for coming. Goodbye.